This is my first review in the new scripted format, so let's see how well it goes. Every now and then there's a Batman story which really pushes the limit of storytelling in comics and shows the true potential of the characters within the Batman universe. Comics that fall under this category include the most famous ones: The Dark Knight Returns, Batman Nightfall, Year One, The Long Halloween, and a few others. Really like No Man's Land. I think No Man's Land was a pretty good comic story. Now we can thankfully add one more to the list. Yep, I think the Black Mirror is on the same level as such stories as The Long Halloween and Year One. Maybe not better, but on the same level, and that's saying something. Because The Long Halloween is one of my favorite Batman stories of all time. This is a true mystery thriller comic. It's got truly suspenseful scenes. Well, before I go on to the story, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the art. Here we got a dynamic duo of Jock and Francesco Francavilla, or Francavilla. Anyway, they both have different styles. You know, Jock, his characters, Jock's storytelling is more rough around the edges. He's got like a really rough, sketchy look, and Francesco has like a really pulp look, like a lot of very pulpy colors, and but both fit the story. With Jock illustrates the chapters on Batman, and Francesco draws the segments with Gordon and his son. Jock's covers are really beautiful. It's some of the best covers I think I've seen in comics. The hardcover looks beautiful with the slipcover, you know, the cover that goes on top of the hardcover. The slipcover is the cover from Detective Comics 871, which is Batman mostly in silhouette, with a bunch of bats flying out from below, and it just says the Black Mirror. That just looks really cool. By the way, DC made a really smart move, collecting the entire 11-issue run in one collection. I would have been willing to buy 2 collections if that's what it took, but it feels like a more complete story having it all in one, and plus it's more economic, frankly. On to the story itself. Scott Snyder does a truly fantastic job telling a compelling mystery and exploring the characteristics of both Jim Gordon and Dick Grayson, specifically Dick Grayson as Batman. What I find impressive about the Black Mirror is how it takes the old concept of the city, you know, it's been talked about before, the city, where Batman talks about, like, the city's evil, or some character from Batman talks about, like, the city's evil, and it's time to tame the city. But the Black Mirror puts a new spin on it. This book basically says that the city serves as an opposite reflection, you know, a Black Mirror, to whoever acts as Batman. Actually, I'm not sure how well this idea fits with Azrael. I mean, the city doesn't, well, I'm not sure, honestly. But anyway, the city in Nightfall doesn't seem that different when Azrael's on the job, or when Azrael was on the job. But, you know, this is a pretty new concept, a pretty original concept Scott Snyder came up with. Dick Grayson, he's a more optimistic person than someone like Bruce Wayne. So the idea is that the city becomes more dangerous in order to reflect a brighter Batman. You know, the brighter the picture, the darker the negative. So in the process, the villains, Dick Grayson's got a few villains in here that he faces, completely new villains. One of them is the Dealer. I thought the Dealer was pretty cool. He runs auctions on supervillain merchandise. I thought it was pretty cool that he was auctioning the crowbar that the Joker used to kill Jason Todd. The villain that most reflects Dick Grayson, I'm not going to reveal here, because it is the most important part of the mystery. The other half of the story focuses on Jim Gordon, which is where the book feels most like a thriller, really getting into psychology of Gordon. He goes through a pretty dangerous ordeal while unraveling just what the hell is going on. And his segments bring up something that probably most people didn't think of before this book. his son, James Jr. All I'll say about him is that he has a very questionable past. That's all I'm going to say about him. I don't want to ruin anything. The mystery element really draws the reader into the book and provides some of the most tense scenes I've ever read in a comic. I was about to say scene, like this is a movie, right? But I've never been this tense reading a comic. It just made me turn the page, and I was truly a little bit creeped out by some of the pages in this book, especially the one of the ones during the Joker issue. It's like pretty much at the very beginning of the Joker issue. I was like, ew. Or either that or an issue before that, or at the end you find. Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but let's just say this book has some page turners. By the end, like the conclusion, Scott Snyder, he ties all these threads that I've stated so far, and more. I would say the other threads, but that would be telling too much. But he really summed up everything at the end in a nice, satisfying way. And it was a truly good ending. Like, I felt closure, but at the same time I felt like this book was going, the book had all of its ideas there, right in the final issue. Like I said, Snyder's characters are all very believable, and they're pretty much all of them are given great dialogue. I thought especially a really funny scene was when Dick Grayson and Tim Drake, Lucius Fox gave them a really high-tech mask thing that would bend light to make their face look however they wanted to, as a disguise, because Dick Grayson was going to go in disguise. And Tim says like they might have to retire the old wig and makeup kit, and Dick just goes, "Blasphemy, Mr. Drake, blasphemy." I'd like to briefly mention the Joker. He plays a small role despite not being. He plays a small role despite being on the back cover of the book. He's only like in 2 issues, but he does push the mystery forward, and he provides comments that are really interesting. Comments that I think about, it really makes sense of how Dick Grayson is more of a bird than a bat. Speaking of Dick Grayson as a bird, they really go deep into how the circus life is, and it's all really believable. And Dick Grayson makes a lot of interesting comments, such as after his night on patrol, when he comes in the morning, if he's too wound tight to sleep, what he'll do is watch nature shows or nature documentaries, just anything without people in it. And Dick Grayson feels really human in this book. He's really likable. I don't think I've read a character so likable in a while. Well, basically, I look forward to seeing the Joker pop up again in current Batman run he's doing with the New 52, because since the Joker brought up some pretty interesting points when referring to Dick Grayson, I just really want to see what Snyder does with Joker when dealing with Bruce Wayne. I think that would be really interesting. But basically, this entire review has been nothing but praise, and trust me, I could have come up with more praise. But seriously, if you're into comics and Batman, I cannot recommend this more. Don't you wish you had been like around, some people that are listening to this may have been around when The Dark Knight Returns first came out. But I certainly wish I had been around when The Dark Knight Returns came out. Just to experience firsthand exactly the enormous effect that it had on the comic industry. But this comic book makes me feel like I was lucky enough to have experienced it when it first debuted. Well, okay, I waited until the hardcover came out, but at least I read all the issues of this run the same year that the run came out. So I guess that's good enough. Bottom line, you've got to check this out. If you like Batman, you have to check this out. Trust me when I say that this book will probably exceed your expectations. Uh, this is certainly a little bit less of a, well, it's on the same level, as I said, it's on the same level as a classic like The Long Halloween, but I think that it's got a few strikes going against it when it comes to like being viewed as a classic. These are not problems with the book. I'm just saying that people will probably think of The Long Halloween before they think of The Black Mirror. Well, one is because this isn't Bruce Wayne. This is Dick Grayson. So people are more used to Bruce Wayne being Batman. So so when thinking of like the pure ultimate Batman story, I think that takes away from viewing The Black Mirror as the top ultimate Batman story. And also, there's not really any classic villains. Again, none of these are problems. I'm just saying that, like, I've heard this be compared to The Long Halloween, and while I think it is as good as The Long Halloween, I think The Black Mirror is even a better mystery than The Long Halloween. But, you know, it's not gonna be the first thing that jumps to mind. But this is, make no mistake, this is a classic Batman story, and a very, well, maybe this is repeating myself, but it's a very good story. It's also got a pretty neat title. It's pretty neat considering after you read the book. So yeah, so you've got to buy this. This is one of the best comics I've read all year.